So why don't we switch around to the second part of what our conversation, which is how can we all think differently, think better, fresher? Get us started.
You know, I think Duke Ellington somewhere said, you know, no boxes.
Like beyond category.
Sometimes just think. Malcolm is actually a genius at that. You can't categorize what he does and what he thinks because he doesn't have boxes. So he's learning from things that are around him, and it gives him an ability to. And I think that's the sign of great intellect, doing what Malcolm's able to do. I admire his books for that and that ability.
Keep going.
Well, it's true.
I like where this is headed.
I try to do that in history. I try to, you know, when I got my doctorate, you have to be a diplomatic historian. That's the box. And then you got to go for a job to be a Cold War historian. And then if you dare do something in cultural history, you get slapped by people. I thought you were doing political and military history, and now you're writing about rock and roll. There's something wrong with that. Well, I'm trying to just see what America's like in all of these different kinds of things. So I think get rid of the blinders. Everything's knowledge, and you can learn from all sorts of people. When I hear people say it's how bored they are in Topeka, you know, Allen Ginsberg used to say, I mean, anybody could be excited in New York City, but you've got to find Topeka holy. Meaning, you know, there's wind, clouds. I know he doesn't like weather. I do. But
where did I say I didn't like
no,
weather?
I'm just kidding. And you know, just there are things to smell and notice in all places, and just keep your don't wear blinders towards things, and quit this hyper categorization of everything. You can't. Everybody wants to put you in a box.
Well, give us an example. Give us an exercise that we could all do that would kind of keep us from doing that.
Was in my car ride here today, laying in the back. I had a little bit of a headache from my flight, and I looked out the window, and the clouds had this amazing pattern. As the car went by, I saw all of those bare branches there and the way the sun was shining. And if I could have been a photographer, you just frame it for me. It's like, my God, that was right there. Well, I was letting my mind see that. But many times I'm just like, oh, I got to get on my cell phone, and maybe get rid of some electronics and get back out and you know, get back and see what matters, which is the land, the soil, the trees, the ocean, the breeze, you know.
Well, you know, I always marvel at people's unwillingness to experiment. It should be more than fine to experiment. It should be expected that you experiment. So, for example, if you replay the Obamacare, but replay it as an experiment. So what Obama says is, I have this idea for how to deliver health care to Americans. I'm going to try it in this part of the country. We're going to roll it out slowly. We'll start in Maryland, and we'll see how well Maryland, you know, start in a state where people are excited about it. Let's see if we can make it work, iron out the kinks, and then say at the very beginning, there's a chance it won't work. And if it doesn't work, here are the options that we have, right? I've used a big, shiny example, but that kind of thing on a million different levels should be part of it should be easier, it should be very easy for a kid going to college, to go to a college for 6 months and then say, or 4 months, and say, it shouldn't be a huge production if that kid decides this isn't working. It should be maybe 50% of kids should leave after 3 months and go somewhere else. I mean, that idea that we should build in slack into systems that allow us to try something, and if it doesn't work, to walk away and try something else. That strikes me as, parenthetically, there's a whole notion about what it would take to improve teaching in America that follows along these same lines, based on the observation that teaching is just about the hardest job there is to do. To do it well is as hard as any other. Only a small number of people appear to be able to do it really well, and we don't know who those people are until they start teaching. So one school of thought says, why don't we just run a giant, big, messy experiment and just say to people, anyone can teach. We'll observe you in a kind of safe environment for a year. If you can't do it, it's fine. Go on and do something else. If you can do it, we're going to hug you, pay you an enormous amount of money, and hope you stay, right? Like it should be possible to construct a society where we allow people to do those kinds of of experiments over and over again.